We are back with even more notes from Peter Sweeney on the Kansas City Chiefs minicamp, and there are some storylines actually starting to emerge. So let's go ahead and get into what it is that Pete has to say. 4 players did not attend practice: wide receiver Rashee Rice and Justin Ross, running back Elijah Mitchell, and Trey Watson. The team noted Rice was excused. I will let you conjecture as to where Rashee Rice might have been that would have been excused. Tight end Jake Brenningstool and cornerback Christian Fulton watched the workout from the sidelines without helmets. Defensive end Felix Henrique Uzama, offensive lineman Jalen Moore and Jawan Taylor, and tight end Jared Wiley were all limited in some capacity. Now, this is a veritable checklist of players starting to accrue on the weenie row of practice that is not participating. And, well, there's no real reason for guys to really be participating this time of the year, especially if they are not rookies, because they've been here before. They've done this before. Now, that does not count for Jake Brenningstool. That does not count for Trey Watson. But the rest of these guys have been through this at least once before. It just helps for team cohesion, really. It helps for conditioning, really. And it is what it is. The one name here that is somewhat disappointing for me, and you can talk about Jawan Taylor not having done anything so far. You can talk about Jalen Moore not having done anything so far. Is his injury from last season lingering? You can talk about Felix Henrique Uzama being as productive during minicamp as he has been through the first 2 seasons of his career. Perhaps that was a cheap shot. I shouldn't have taken that. But the one name that really disappoints me here is Justin Ross. Not being disappointed in Justin Ross, being disappointed for Justin Ross. This, we have to believe, is his last chance to really make a go at the 53. Maybe he makes it, maybe he doesn't. We are seeing a couple other wide receivers pop up, but it's hard to imagine him making the 53 at this point. The one thing that I would hope, we talked a little bit yesterday about the Chiefs possibly being in position to trade depth at wide receiver and offensive line, which seems paradoxical because they do not have the top end talent at those positions, but they are accumulating guys they have probably 4 guys on the team right now that look like really good number 2 wide receivers. They have a lot of guys on the roster right now that look like really good number 4 receivers. So someone will need a number 4 receiver, and they might be able to get him from the Kansas City Chiefs. Moving on. A general note to start on the practice as a whole. In what is a passing camp, the defense seemed to be settling in on Wednesday. Throughout the 11-on-11 periods, I counted at least 5 would-be sacks in a contact scenario, including 2 as a result of good coverage downfield. That might be a little bit alarming because, just like we always talk about in training camp, anytime that a Kansas City Chiefs player makes a good play in practice, it means another Kansas City Chiefs player had a suboptimal play in practice. And those 5 would-be sacks, for the troubles the Kansas City Chiefs have had, for the troubles that we don't want to see the Kansas City Chiefs have, yeah, that seems a little bit alarming. But Pete does go on to point out that 2 of them, at least 2 of them, are as a result of good coverage downfield. So that is what it is. You can't read too much into it at this point, but not precisely what we would be hoping for. On the flip side, maybe the defense will be really good again. The next tweet here: during the first period, quarterback Gardner Minshew hit rookie running back Brashard Smith in the right flat. Smith began darting upfield, stopping sharply and cutting left, allowing cornerback Najee Johnson to pass by. Smith isn't suddenly going to be an RB1, but eager to see live padded sessions at training camp. Man, Brashard Smith certainly seems to be a contributor in the making. That stopping sharply and cutting left, allowing Najee Johnson to just zip right on past. We haven't seen too terribly much of that since the Tyreek Hill days in Kansas City. So adding a little bit of that back to the offense where maybe Mahomes just has a check down pass, but whoever's catching that check down pass, Brashard Smith perhaps, makes one guy miss, then makes another guy miss badly. And all of a sudden, things are off to the races. Just as a reminder, because Brashard Smith is not an absolute force of nature. He is not an athletic freak. He's a really fast guy. So 5'9", that is not good. 194, again, not good. A 32.5-inch vertical. Guys, I had a 32-inch vertical in high school, so not particularly promising there. But he's very, very fast. A 4.39 40-yard dash with a 10-yard split of 1.54. Also, when you see him on tape, he's a one-cut runner. Not the biggest juke guy in the world, but he finds a direction upfield and he takes it. That is something, no nonsense running, right? So, something that gets people into trouble a lot in the NFL. And we saw when Tyreek Hill was a Kansas City Chief, Travis Kelce, I guess, just got lost in thinking he was Tyreek Hill. Do you remember Travis Kelce doing all of the dancing in the middle of the field? And then once Tyreek Hill was gone, Travis Kelce didn't really do that anymore. The upfield running, catch and go type stuff is important for the type of offense that I think the Kansas City Chiefs are trying to propagate here in Kansas City. I think what they're trying to do, they want to spread things out. They want to take defensive players downfield, and that creates space everywhere. To where if you can make one guy miss, there's not going to be another guy there to just make the tackle because everyone is spread out. You make one guy miss, it's a chunk play. We haven't seen that the past few years because they haven't had the speed. So if someone does make one guy miss, there's someone right there because the safety was right over top, because the linebacker was in a shell coverage. There was always someone right there. With this speed downfield, with spreading the offense out, with motioning Brashard Smith out to a wide receiver spot, there's not going to be players capable, or there's not going to be players available to make all of those plays immediately. So if one tackle is shaken, it's going to be a chunk play. I think we have some rumblings with this offense that are very reminiscent, if you remember back to the beginning of that 2018 season, that magical 5,000-yard, 50-touchdown performance by Patrick Mahomes. Remember that? There started to be all of these rumblings out of training camp. I don't know what this offense is, but it looks very strange, right? It looks very explosive. It looks like it's just different, a little bit different, and it ended up being very different. I think what they're going to be aiming for here is a college-type offense in the NFL. We know Andy Reid is a big fan of the college game. We know Andy Reid watches plenty of college ball. If he finally has the horses in the stable at the wide receiver positions, if he finally has the guys on the line to be able to give Patrick Mahomes just a little bit of time, can Andy Reid spark up a college-type offense in the NFL, or do it again? Right? We've had that a couple of times with Mahomes. Here we go. A couple guys here. During 11-on-11 in the red zone, tight end Noah Gray caught a touchdown pass from Patrick Mahomes on a slant. Wide receiver Mack Moore Big Mac Delana, future number one wide receiver Mac Delana, hauled in a score from Minshew on what looked like a post. Now, looked like a post, not the most promising phrase from Pete, but we can look past that. Wide receiver Jason Brownley had a touchdown from Chris Oladokin. Now, we are seeing Jason Brownley pop up again and again. I want to remind you that there is a video about Jason Brownley and the Jason Brownley signing here on the channel in the 2025 off-season playlist, as well as I can't remember if it's just there or if it's also in the 2025 draft picks playlist. Anyway, this is a solid-looking wide receiver in Jason Brownley. This is a guy who does have the tools necessary to play in the NFL. Jason Brownley is a guy who can make an NFL roster. Jason Brownley looks to me to be like a guy who can make some noise. It was, at first, sort of evident to me that he was going to need some time. Guys, he's making a lot of noise very early into his career as a Kansas City Chief. A whole lot of noise. So that when you start looking at guys like Juju Smith-Schuster, who's a known quantity, you know what Juju is. You know who Juju is. You know what Juju can give you. You start looking at those guys as the wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6 position. You start questioning whether or not the Kansas City Chiefs will roster 7 wide receivers. I think that when we're looking at some of the players who are not participating, I think you're probably starting to see trends for guys who might start the season on IR. I had been absolutely convinced that the Chiefs would carry 4 tight ends because that seems to be what it is that they want to do at that position. I'm starting to think maybe it will be 3 at first with someone starting the season on IR. That would definitely open up the possibility that the Chiefs roster 7 wide receivers early in the season. So you're looking at Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, Jalen Royals, Hollywood Brown, 5, 6, 7. You're looking at between 1 and 3 players at the wide receiver position from all of those other guys. That means Juju. That means Jason Brownley. That means Tyquan Thornton. That means Nico Remigio. That means Sky Moore. That means all of those guys at the wide receiver position that the Chiefs have. There's between 1 and 3 spots for those guys, for all of those guys. And Jason Brownley might be working his way into being one of those 3. And a couple more here. Later in 7-on-7s, Mike Edwards stepped in front of a Minshew pass to pick it cleanly. Oladokin threw a deep back shoulder touchdown down the right sideline to Brownlee for 2 total scores in the look. Brownlee making noise regardless of who it is at quarterback, and it's only going to be a matter of time with that happening before we see him playing with Patrick Mahomes more often. I really believe that. I really believe that at this point, you're looking at this 2 days in a row, and yes, these practices favor the offense. Yes, these practices favor certain attributes over others, and Jason Brownley falls into both of them. He's an offensive player. He is a fast enough, big wide receiver, difficult to really corral without contact, right? So I think those things are favoring Brownlee at this point, but I think that he is the type of guy who can use those things to his advantage with pads on as well. In red zone 7-on-7, Mahomes finished his part with touchdowns to Gray and a crosser to Xavier Worthy, where the receiver would have outrun the defense laterally in a game scenario for 6. Now, one thing that I am guilty of is Noah Gray is invisible to me. So I will gloss over some of this stuff sometimes, but it appears to me that Noah Gray has been very involved in the offense to this point for the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know if they are trying to work him into the position where he is having the baton handed off to him by Travis Kelce. I don't know if they're trying to keep Travis Kelce fresh for later in the season. I don't know what it is with Noah Gray, but he is popping up a lot in this preseason, so look for him to have an expanded role this coming season from what it is we have seen from him. And finally, in Minshew's turn at red zone 7-on-7, he had a touchdown to tight end Robert Tonyan before rookie cornerback Null Williams broke up one of his passes. Null Williams starting to pop up time and again. And remember, this is Null Williams out of Cal. 6 foot tall, which is a green number. It is a great number. Weight, 199 pounds. That's a good number. I think that sometimes the RAS stuff is a little bit skewed one direction or another. 6 foot tall, 199 is kind of what is expected this day and age at the cornerback position. 19 reps on the bench press, so he's a strong guy. 30 3/4 inch arms, so a good arm length, not great. A 4.50 40-yard dash with a 1.61 10-yard split. These are problematic numbers. So we will see how good it is that Null Williams can be. We will see if perhaps he is just a poor tester. But here's one other thing worth looking at here. That 1.61 10-yard split's rough. The 4.50 40-yard dash is serviceable. That is, there's plenty of starting corners in the league that run a 4.50 40-yard dash. The agility grades: a short shuttle of 4.25 and a 3-cone drill of 6.97. These are not elite numbers, but for a cornerback who is 6 foot tall, 199 pounds, and able to bench press 225 pounds 19 times, being able to get around in a good yellow type of capacity is a good sign. So a lot of times, like I've said, these numbers for the agility numbers are skewed because guys who know they're not going to test well just don't test at all, because if you test poorly, it can be absolutely devastating towards your draft stock, etc. So Null Williams is starting to pop up more and more in these reports as well, worth keeping an eye on, as the Chiefs have no Christian Fulton to this point in minicamp, but also they're looking to figure out that wide receiver, or that cornerback 2, cornerback 3, cornerback 4 depth chart for this team. That is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. If you find yourself here by chance but not designing, the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on the channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.